Okay, so one of the labs, and actually I'm going to use this lab to show you like a whole bunch of the techniques in the like there's like 5 or 6 SQL injection labs, and I'm going to show you all the techniques in this one lab because if you have one SQL injection vulnerability, I can show you pretty much all of them. Yeah, it's nice when this works. Yeah, now my confidence in PortSwigger has actually been shaken after after seeing what a student went through yesterday. So I am maybe I need to buy a couple copies of Burp Suite, give them some money to keep the website running, because I'm totally reliant upon them now for this particular class. I got rid of all the other stuff that I was doing in this class, hoping that their site was going to solve all of my problems. Okay, so this is a lab where you can retrieve. This is the first lab where you can retrieve hidden data using. So this is basically a category filter that's been implemented, and as part of the category filter, you specify which category you're interested in, and so that's what this thing is. So you have these categories, and if you click on a category like accessories, what you'll see is that the filter here is given as a URL parameter. And you might think that this parameter is being passed into the database to select all products that have this particular category. And so we want to probe this thing for potential injection vulnerabilities. And so you would spray naughty strings or naughty characters at this thing. So in this case, I'll do the double quote first. And of course, nothing gets returned. But if I do a single quote, then you'll see you get an internal server error. And this is a telltale sign that this thing is injectable, that you created you crashed the SQL backend. So we are going to programmatically, if you see this URL, we're going to programmatically change the category in order to figure out what we can find out on this backend database. So this is the code. And one of the things with these labs is that the categories change based on it's a random thing. And so you will see like on this one, so I try and go for the single word categories. So you can barely see this. When I hover over GIFs, in the bottom left, you see the category is equal to GIFs. And then when I hover over accessories, the categories accessories. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and I'm going to say my category that I'm going to inject into is this. I'm going to give it this URI that is in my lab. So this is the so this is my site, and then I have this try category function that tells me what I'm about to try, and then constructs the category string, and then retrieves it. And then basically, if it gets a code that's not 200, so a 200 code means that the thing succeeded, and then I can go ahead and print out the results. And as it turns out, all of these products, if you look at what these products are returned as, you can see that the products that are returned have an H3 that gives them their title. And so I'm using the H3 tag to just give me information on what got returned. And so I just print all of those straight up from parsing. If it's not a 200 code, it's probably an internal server error, and it's a 500 code. And then I'll basically skip. I'll just return the response. So for both of these, I'm going to return the response because eventually I'll need to parse it. And so what I'm going to do, I'm going to first try the category and then try the two injection strings just to show you that this program works and the results it gives us is what we think it is. So I'm going to hit play. It's going to install this stuff. I'm going to try accessories, and you can see that it's got the 3 products there. I'm going to try a double quote, and it's going to give me nothing as it did before. I'm going to try a single quote, and it's going to give me a 500 code with text internal server error. And then I'm going to try the canonical SQL injection error. So that's what this is. So I know that the single quote breaks syntax. I'm going to say, give me everything in this backend, and then put a comment there. I could actually put a space there. Well, I'm already running it. I probably should be putting a space there. And so I'll hit return on this. And then you can see I get everything, all of the backend database. So I have successfully done the injection. I then write a script to figure out the number of columns in the query that I'm injecting into. I don't have any idea a priori what the web server is doing when it's packaging up a query to the backend database, and I don't know the number of columns in the query results that are returned from the database. It probably has, if I'm looking at this, it probably has at least two. Oh shoot, I already solved it. Oh well. It probably has at least two, well, maybe three. It's probably got the title, and it's probably got the price, and it's probably got maybe a URL to an image. So it might be returning like maybe 3 columns, but I don't know for sure. But I can test using the union facility. So that's what this is doing. I'm going to try for columns between 0 and 10. I am going to try and do a union select null, and then I'm going to use string multiplication. I don't know if you've ever used string multiplication in Python before, but this is going to add a whole bunch of comma nulls based on the iterator that I have. And so then I'm going to take this p string and this n string, and I'm going to put them together and then finish off the injection. And then I'm going to try that category. And you'll see the output as I run this loop. And then if the response I get back is a 200, I found the number of columns. And it's the number of, it's I plus 1, because I always start off with a default of 1 null at least. So I'm going to run that. So this is the loop. And so you see the first null happens, I get the 500. And then I try 2 nulls, I get the 500. I try 3 nulls, I get the 500. I try 4 nulls, I get the 500. 5, I get the 500. 6, I get the 500. 7 is the 500. And then 8, I get this thing back. So this tells me I have 8 columns. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, and then I can try 9, and 9 gives me a 500, and then this is 10. Sorry, the wraparound here is not letting you see it, and then I get a 500. Okay, one of the things about this union is that if I actually, I mentioned that unions are strongly typed, or SQL is strongly typed. If I want to do a union and I want to make sure that a string matches the union, that it would fail if the data type isn't correct, then I can basically probe the backend database to see whether or not the data type of a particular column is a string. So I'm going to pass back a string called hello, and if it is if that column that's passed back is a string type, this will succeed. If it is an integer type, this query is going to fail. Now, one of the things I want to do is I want to pass in this hello, and then when it gets unioned with the column that contains this string that is in the H3, you will see this hello string as a product in the results. And so that's another thing that I want to actually be able to send in the right field that will eventually show me a result from the database. And that's what this is going to do. I am going to send hello as the first parameter, and then the second parameter, and then the third parameter, and see which fields take strings, and then moreover, which field takes the string that would eventually give me the H3. Okay, so that's what this loop is doing. And so you can see in the code, that's what this is. And you can see, I know there are 8 columns. I'm going to take hello, and I'm going to just try it in every position in this category. And that's the end of my program. Okay. And so internal error, so the first one is probably an ID. It's probably an integer, which is why this thing crashed. The second one gives me, this actually succeeds. But if you look at this, the hello did not come back in the results. So I'm guessing the title of the thing is not stored in the second column that comes back from the database. This is the third field. And again, the third field is also a string. And if you can see, the hello comes back. So you know that the title, like when you do the union, the title field will get echoed back if you, oh, sorry, this is the, yeah, this was the third field right here. Okay, that's what I wanted to show you here. And so all of these will give you either an error if it's not a string, or it'll give you the results back if it is a string. Okay, other questions about that level? I think that's all I wanted to show you, but you've seen a lot of the things that will show up in the subsequent levels. Okay, so that is retrieval of hidden data. The next thing I want to talk about is retrieving data from other tables. So the product table is interesting, but we want to get other kinds of information from this site. So I'm going to go to the next level. And the level here gives us that there's a table named users, and the column has a username and password field. I want to exfiltrate the administrator's, well, first it tells me that there is an administrator user, but I want to dump all the users in the database and their passwords if at all possible. And so I'm going to construct a union attack to basically try and paste in the user table as a union with the product table, and then as we did with the hello string, we're going to exfiltrate the actual usernames and passwords on the backend database. So that's what this thing is going to do. And so again, the same thing as before. It does have an accessories category, so that's fortunate. So I can actually in my script. It also has a pets category, so I'm going to use the pets category in this case because that's what my level assumes. And then what I'm going to do, the try category is again the same. I'm going to do again the same ones that I did before. It turns out there are a smaller number of columns in this one. I'm going to figure out what are the number of columns. So let me do that first. Oh, I have to actually give it the URI. All right, so I try pets, and then I try double quotes. This is all as we had before. I try all of them, and I get all of the different pets here. And then I'm going to figure out the number of columns. So single null, double null. And so you can see the double null worked. It gave you these the products back. So the number of columns is 2. And so that's basically my loop stops as soon as it gets the right number of columns. And so there were 2 columns. So now I already knew that. So that's why this thing is going on 2 columns. And then I'm going to figure out which of the 2 columns passes back a text field and whether or not that text field shows up in the output, because I want to see the output of whatever union I'm doing. So that's what the next 2 try categories are going to do. Which field has text and which of these fields can I use to exfiltrate the username and password? So if you see this, I union select with the first field being hello and the second field being null, and immediately you see that it shows up in the output. So now I have a field that is showing up as THs. It turns out the second field is also The second field is also a string, but it doesn't show up in the TH headings of the web page. It's actually in the TD settings of the page. And that's just you could actually do, show both at the same time. But in my particular script, I only dump the TH. Oh, that's one of the things that's different about this script. If you go here and you look at the products are a little bit different. If you inspect the titles of these products, you will see that rather than being in an H3, they're in a TH heading. And that's why this script is different. Because you see the UI is a little different. It's got these things instead of the actual product fields with images. Okay, so now we know that the first field has a text string, and that text string is emitted when we do the union with that table and look for the results. So now what we're going to do is do a union where I'm going to select the username, username null from users, and I'm going to append that to the category, the results of the category query. And so that's what this next query is going to do. And you can see Carlos is in here, Wiener is in here, and administrator is in here. And then I'm going to do the same thing again, but I'm going to say, well, what are their passwords? And of course, the passwords are stored in plain text. And so you can see here's a password, here's a password, and here's a password. One of the things about this query is that you might not know, like, what are the usernames and their passwords together. And so the last query that I'm going to run appends both the username and password columns. This is an append operator between the two, or it appends a tilde that separates the username and the password. And so that's what this crazy thing. This is a level I didn't assign you. How do you append into a single column? And that's what this is doing. So this associates the username and the user table with the password in the password table or column. And so when I do this, then you can see that the username of Carlos has the password here. An administrator has this password, and then you can log in as the administrator and delete the Carlos account is the result of that. Okay. That is that program. The final one I am going to run. Did this solve the level? It did not. That's okay. We don't need to solve it. Hopefully it lets me start up another level without having solved the previous one. So this level doesn't give you the name of the table, and it doesn't give you the names of the columns of anything you're trying to access. You have to use the information schema table in order to discover the user table name, and then the columns in the user table, and then you can construct the exact same exploit to do so. So that's what I'm going to show you next. So again, if I look in this, it's got pets and accessories, which is good because my script does assume one of the two exists. And so here is the code I'm going to show you. Again, all of this stuff is the same. This is not the same, though. I need to change this. So I have a category that exists on this. And if you run this in your script, you have to make sure that category exists. Oh, wait, gifts did. I actually have to change it. I have to change this to accessories. This is why it's a parameter. Accessories. Hopefully I spelled that right. Again, try category, and then try category with a union select null from information schema tables. And so this is trying to figure out the number of columns in the category thing, and then I'll try null null. So I decided not to implement this as a loop because I already showed you the loop in the previous one. And then you'll see that there's actually two columns in this thing. And then what I'm going to do is select table name null from information schema tables, And this is going to list out all of the, every single table is going to be a TH heading, as it turns out. So that's what I'm going to show you now. Try accessories. These are the accessories. I union select null from information schema.tables, and then you can see that it's an internal error because the number of columns doesn't match. And then I do a double null from information schema tables, and I get back the same stuff, which is good. So now I know there's 2 columns. And then now I'm going to say union select table name null from information schema.tables, and we'll see if this ends up in the TH header. I think it does. And you can see. So here, I mean, there's a ton of these things. This was the original query. And you can see this is Postgres partition table. This is extension versions. There's a ton of tables in this database. The one table I want you to see is the table that's got all the user stuff in it. And it's right here. You see this users underscore VHTYSD, that's the users table. And you can see things. So because this got tacked on to the product table of the original the category query, you can see the giant pillow thing. That's not a table. It's because it got unioned with the first query that you see the giant pillow thing in there. But this is the table. And you can write a script to pull out the table, which is basically what I did. I have a beautiful soup thing, and I find the table, the TH, that regular expression compiles, and it looks for users at the beginning of the field. And then it says, I found that table, because then when I get the name of that table, I can then use that to query the columns table, because I need to figure out the columns in that table that I can then query. And as it turns out, they polymorph the column names so that you are forced to use the information schema columns data to figure out the actual username and password columns. It's not username, password, it's something else. And that's basically what this query is doing. Union select column name from this thing where your table name is that table. And so that's what the next 2 queries are going to do. So the first thing is I parse the user table. And so from here, I can select the column name from that table. And you can see as part of the results, again, this is a union from the original filter, the category filter. And you can see the username column is named this. And the password column is named this. And so then the next thing that this script does is to do a union select username column, password column from users. And I'll show you this in code, what I do with the results. So I find, again, I search for the username table, which is it starts with username, but then it has the crazy suffix. And then the password column has also got this prefix and then a random stuff at the bottom, at the back. And then I actually try that. And I union select both of the username field and the column field from the user table. And then what I'll do is I'll just dump all the rows in this case, because I mean, I could have done this separately because the TH, I could have done this in 2 TH queries, but I'm just doing this in 1 union select. And then I'm just taking the results and then showing you where this thing shows up. And I'll just print the entire TR, which has both the username and password fields as the exfiltrated result. And then you can see, so each one of these things, you can see that, whoops, sorry. Where am I here? You can see the result here. This TR has the administrator username and password, so you can use that to log in and get the result. And then there's another entry, which is an actual product, and you can see the first entry, and then the second entry is this TD. And then the next row has 2 entries, and it's got the giant pillow thing. And then you have this user shows up, and then the Carlos user. Okay, so that is everything. And this, did this solve the level? Well, you have to log in with those credentials and delete the account, which you can do with You can do it programmatically or you can do it manually. I think I have I don't have the programmatic version of this that actually logs in and deletes the count, but you get the idea.